during the process to have someone check me and be like, yeah, this is making sense. This part doesn't make sense. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, we love the team feedback, getting multiple layers from multiple people. Really how looking at the very first draft that everyone submitted to where it ended up now, some of them it's night and day in the absolute best way. Right. And so it really goes to show just the power, again, going back to that community aspect when people are working on, even if it's just a single chapter together, how much better it can be when we're all one cohesive unit.
During the process to have someone check.
100%. Anju Vachi, great to see you, my friend.
Welcome.
Thanks for joining. Shannon, we got coming on too. Great to see both of you. Jasmine, I believe you had your hand up briefly.
Yeah, I was going to echo what you were saying, that everybody coming together just really uplifted, me to write. Like, I think relating with Anna, like when we were just freaking out that, hey, does this even make sense? What are we writing? And then you guys coming in, like, giving your input and even getting to a point where I myself could see what the book is going to be, like how it's going to flow, how everybody's chapters are coming together. Like my mind is blown. I cannot wait for people to read it, and I am so grateful for everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Very sweet. We're grateful to have you as part of the book. We're grateful to have everyone together as part of the book. It's been a really special experience, and I'm happy that we could all share this.
So Ty, you've been asking everyone questions so far. Let's ask you a question.
Let's dive right in. I'm ready.
How was your experience with publishing a co-authored book?
It was a different experience than writing an entire book.
Yeah.
We talked about the layer of community and just having people around you working together towards one shared goal, which to me was absolutely the biggest difference. Having everyone combining efforts, sharing their knowledge together. It was really a special thing to have everyone alongside one another, building this, writing at the same time, editing at the same time, and being able to be also behind the scenes, putting a lot of stuff together. A lot of you may have not realized the days where my eyes felt like they were bleeding because I was staring at a screen for so long throughout a day, making sure everything was as perfect as it could be. So it was a challenging at times, but one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever done was contributing to the book, but also just helping put it together. Absolutely magical.
That's beautiful. Well, it's been such a pleasure to work with you on this project, Ty. Your work ethics is absolutely fantastic. It's something I've been saying to you from the very beginning. I'm so grateful that I attended that random event of a random Torontonian who was having his book launch event in Toronto. And I just went to this event and I met Ty there. And as we kept chatting, I realized we have similar values and goals in life. And here we are today publishing a co-authored book. And it's been such a rewarding and incredible journey working by your side, learning from you and growing together. So thank you so much for being in this journey with me.
Anshul, that's so sweet. Definitely means a lot. Couldn't have done any of this without you. I really value and appreciate your partnership. And it's funny how Anshul just came to a random guy's party. I was a random guy. I was releasing a book. I didn't invite Anshul to the book launch. I didn't even know she existed. She came to the party. We bonded, shared love for books. We exchanged numbers briefly. We'll go for a coffee and talk about books. The next thing you know, here we've got the company. We're putting all these wonderful people together, helping not only the group become authors, but helping them share all of their valuable knowledge and expertise with their communities and with the world. And I believe it was actually Anshul's idea first to start the company. So this truly would not exist without you, Anshul. So I'm very grateful for you.
Appreciate that. And likewise, buddy. Okay, so let's get started with these with our official launch interview. Congratulations to every single buddy who is here, who chose to be here, chose to be a part of this project. Truly, this book is absolutely incredible. Like, reading every single excerpt brings so much value. And without a doubt, we are going to hit multiple bestseller lists by the end of today. And so I just want to once again take a moment and say congratulations to everybody.
Congratulations to all of you.
Yes. All right. So the first person today that I'd like to ask some questions would be one of our co-authors and the co-founder, which is Ty Hoskin. Ty, could you begin with briefly talking about a bit about yourself and what brought you to actually participate in Things I Wish I Knew?
Definitely. So I'm a communication coach. Primarily, I help people speak with more confidence and clarity so they can become better leaders and advance their careers. And this book happened because Anshul, you and I were, I believe, sitting on a bench in a park overlooking Lake Ontario here in Toronto. And we had the idea because people were always coming up to us saying, I would love to be in a book, but a whole book is so much work. And enough of those conversations, we thought, what if people didn't have to write an entire book, but they could still become published authors? And that's really where this idea was born.
Love it. So your excerpts about Things I Wish I Knew About First Impressions, and it is jam-packed with value. I highly recommend every single person check it out. Ty has also offered very generously some free resources in his excerpt. Who would you say, Ty, is the ideal type of person that should read your chapter?
Really, it's anyone who wants to just absolutely nail that first impression and win people over within the first 10 seconds of meeting them.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say is one actionable tool that you recommend readers use in your chapter?
Let me give a couple tools. The whole theme that you should always start with when it comes to first impressions is, what are you doing with your body language? So people make a first impression of you before they even hear you speak. So you should be hyper aware of that body language when you meet someone. Simple stuff like keeping your shoulders down and back, your head up, keeping that strong, confident posture. Making sure that you're looking someone in the eyes when you're first meeting them, making that eye contact. Keep your arms at your sides, your hands visible, a nice firm handshake. Simple things, but if you don't actually put intention towards being better with that body language, you're probably making a lot of mistakes.
So how are we all doing here today?
10 out of 10. You're all nailing it. Amazing first impressions. I've all known you for a while now, so I might be a little biased because I love each and every one of you, but 10 out of 10.
Love it. Love it. What would you say, Ty, to someone who has thought about becoming an author, perhaps a co-author, because that involves writing an excerpt, which is a chapter? What would you say to someone who's unsure about writing their own chapter?
If you're unsure about writing your own chapter, you probably have some type of mental blocks that are holding you back. So you might feel like you're not a good enough writer, or you might think you haven't accomplished enough in life to be worthy of becoming an author, or your ideas aren't worth sharing. Every person, I swear, every person feels this way before they start writing. So I encourage you to kind of push past that fear, step into your power, have faith and belief in yourself, and at least consider exploring becoming a published author. Have a conversation with us, talk to one of the other co-authors, because I truly believe anyone with value to share can write a chapter and can become an author.
Love that. And absolutely, I agree. Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights, Ty. Once again, it's been such an honor to have you and do this together. Truly, we have been working endlessly for the last couple of months on this, every single day coming together and working out things to make sure we are here today and ready for launch. So thank you so much for all your hard work, your dedication, your time, your commitment. I truly value it.
I appreciate that, Anshul. Your words mean a lot.
Lovely.
Now, I'm going to turn it back on you now, because I would love to know actually some similar answers about your chapter and how people can gain value from it, because I know a lot of time and effort and energy went into writing yours. We even renamed it at the end. We were switching things, fine-tuning and modifying to make it absolutely perfect. So I'd love to know from you, Anshul, a person picks up the book, what type of person should read Things I Wish I Knew About Branding Your Startup?
Thank you for that question, Ty. So I would say the ideal reader for this, for my excerpt, would be anybody who is looking to brand themselves online. Because if the chapter is called Things I Wish I Knew About Branding Your Startup, but this truly applies to anyone that's looking to, perhaps become a social media influencer, just want to add value to people out there, spread education, knowledge, help them achieve whatever goal that they've set digitally, because we know that there are so many competitors nowadays online. There's so many coaches, there's so many people now doing the exact same thing as you. And that's why setting yourself apart is extremely crucial. And that's what this excerpt talks about. It is literally meant for people to start from scratch. And by the end of this excerpt, you're going to leave having a brand identity created that's very distinct and unique to who you are, and that tells your story.
Absolutely love that. Crystal clear.
Thanks.
Okay, so within that chapter, what would you say, what's one big takeaway or one actionable tool that a person could start using immediately?
What a great question. And this is something I talk about endlessly. You may meet me on the street and I love, communicating with people, just striking conversations, and I'll end up telling them, do you know, I've been running a branding company for the last 13 years. And then as we keep along, they'll ask me the same question. And I always tell them, create your customer avatar. It is so crucial. In fact, I'll show you what I have here. Can you all see this? This is my avatar. It's of an individual who is my target audience. This is the kind of individual that I want to help and support. And these are their pain points around it. How am I actually supporting this individual through my initiative? So one of the actionable tools that I highly recommend you look into and read about in this excerpt, it's not that long because it's an excerpt, but it would be about how to create and define your customer avatar. It's very important.
Love it. It is very important. I've seen that drawing a few different times, and I believe it's something that you come back to when you're needing some guidance on next steps. So yeah, it's a powerful practice. Highly recommend that.
Thank you.
Okay, so Anshul, you've been in now, I believe, 3 co-authored books. This, I assume, being your favorite. What would you say to someone if they're kind of on the fence about being in a co-authored book?
Firstly, I want to say that the decision to become a co-author and write your own chapter is a remarkable opportunity for personal and professional growth. It is completely natural for someone to feel unsure, because stepping into something new, it brings a mix of excitement and nervousness. But there are a few reasons why I highly recommend pursuing becoming an author, whether you're writing your own book or being a co-author. Number one is a unique perspective, because this unique perspective is very unique to you. It's who you are. And so the world doesn't know about the way XYZ thinks, Derek thinks, Shannon thinks, or Aiden thinks. But when you put pen to paper, what you're writing is so unique to you that you're sharing that gift to the world, right? The second thing is your contribution to knowledge. You are now here after 25 years, 30 years, 40 years of life experience. So you have this knowledge within you that you are now sharing with the world and creating impact, right? The next would be networking and collaboration. When you're a part of a co-authored book, you have this unique opportunity to meet people from across the world, collaborate with people. I have seen people who have started businesses together, who ran projects together, started podcasts together. So there's this unique opportunity of networking and collaboration. And I also want to add that you overcome challenges when you do decide to become a co-author and you've never written before, because we know writing is hard. And if you're with the right company, the right team, they will help you overcome those challenges and make sure that you're writing your best excerpt possible, something you're extremely proud of, just like here we do at Elite Impact Publishing.
Amazing. You're a very eloquent speaker. I've always admired that about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So are you, communications coach?
I do my best. Awesome. Next, we'll move on to Aiden. We have a couple questions for you, Aiden. Aiden's chapter was Things I Wish I Knew About Entrepreneurship.
And you can see I moved to my standing desk tie so I could roll my shoulders back. And
I love a standing desk. It's easier to have good posture if you're standing.
yeah.
It's harder to slouch that way, but yeah, appreciate you making it easier to do the hard things. That's what we're all about. So Aiden, what type of person should read your chapter? Somebody would say, oh, well, I'm not an entrepreneur. Maybe I don't need to read this, but I feel like you may have something else to say.
Yeah, it's titled Things I Wish I Knew About Entrepreneurship. However, I would recommend anyone who's a leader, who's a creative, who's an independent, basically someone who's creating something in the world, because entrepreneurship is really about creating something new, creating something from scratch. And so the process I've defined is a different way of thinking and relating to your business, to your team, to your the things you're up to in the world that will be more sustainable and successful in the long run.
Love it. It's a great answer. What's one thing that stands out to you from your chapter that if somebody had, let's say, 2 minutes and they needed something actionable that they could do that day to help them improve their life, which tool would you recommend to them throughout your chapter?
I have a slight twist on the question, which is that I think what I've written about is the idea that insight precedes action. And so it's sort of like with addiction work. It's much easier to give something up if you have the insight and awareness that you no longer need it and it doesn't serve you. And so my chapter is not a stick whacking you on the head, telling you to take care of yourself or telling you to do this. It's trying to give you a perspective and a way of looking at something that will allow you to naturally change your behavior. So I think just reading it will be enough. However, within the chapter, there's two tools. One is a reflection process of looking at your business or project or life and looking at first your own needs. Secondly, the environment you're trying to move through. And third, what I like to use car metaphors, what vehicle you have to build to sort of traverse that terrain. That's one reflection process that's in there. And then the other is I love simplifying things. So when it comes to business, I simplify business into 3 aspects: sell, serve, and scale. Rather than thinking by departments, I think about the essential functions that a business has to achieve to continue. And that is to gain new relationships, revenue, reputation, to maintain new the revenue, relationships, and reputation you've gotten. And then to scale is to grow your ability to sell and serve. And so it's really this idea of sell, serve, scale, gain, maintain, grow. That's the little mantra that's in there.
It is absolutely so well done. And there is a ton of value for entrepreneurs, business owners, C-level executives, because I love how you add that personal life experience, and you're sharing things that have worked. Like these tools are tools that a lot of like entrepreneurs do use to sustain success. It's all about in the sustaining of what you're doing. So thank you, Aiden, for writing this piece of work that I think for years and years to come is going to help so many people who are entering this this phase of entrepreneurship but struggle in that pursuit of sustaining it. So great job.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. Aiden was one of the first co-authors that we signed, and he actually signed on the spot on the day of our launch party at Anshul's book party last year. He signed on the spot, but he had a moment when he wasn't sure, and he said, can we maybe go for a coffee and discuss this more? And I said, some version of, I feel like you already know the answer and you're going to do this. Let's commit now. And he did. So what would you say to somebody who maybe is a little bit unsure, maybe they want to think about it, and perhaps all they need is a little push? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, so I think some context is I've already identified as a writer. So this wasn't my first time writing something, it was my first time writing a book. And I think there's like a few benefits I want to highlight. One is like, for me, the thing that was overwhelming wasn't writing the content. It was all the things that came around getting the writing out to people, the publishing, all like the marketing, all these types of things. And that was overwhelming. And so it's not always that maybe we're afraid of the writing. It's just that the whole process seems overwhelming. And so by doing it, having support, first of all, from both you and Anshul, and also from having a team of people where there's a positive energy and a momentum, and we're all sort of bouncing ideas off of each other, that really changed the game, where now, because I've now been through that process, it's much easier to just put my mind in the zone of writing, because it's not held back by that concern of all the other little things I don't know how to do, right? That's one. And I'd say to other people, like, for me, it really helped me formalize my process and commit to writing as a direction in my life, to stop putting it off till tomorrow. It was a great way to connect with people. And I think in my own business, right, I do coaching as well. All I had before were multi-$1,000 products for people to engage me with. So most people I'd meet might not be willing to jump in on the spot and support my business, even if they really loved what I was doing. However, by having a book, it's a great way to invite people into a conversation about the work you're trying to put out into the world, right? Not just for the success of your business, but for the success of your ideas and the impact you want to have. It's a great way, because most people can say, yeah, I'll come to a book launch party. Yeah, I'll support a book, right? It just gives me more opportunities to connect and serve people. And I think that's been a huge motivating piece. So like, just see it as that opportunity to like really engage in a different way and create more opportunity to engage.
I love that. It almost sounds like, you're encouraging people to embrace this opportunity with an open heart and an eagerness to learn and to share. Yeah.
Yeah, extremely well said. I agree. Okay, next we have Kelsey, our favorite women's leadership coach.
Hey,
Thanks for joining. It's great to see you.
great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Kelsey, I'd love to know from you, your chapter being on climbing the corporate ladder as a female leader, who do you think would benefit the most from reading your chapter?
Yeah, great question. It's either aspiring or current female leaders who are trying to get a seat at the executive table, or even those who already have a seat at the table, but they felt really alone in their journey, which was common for myself. But really, essentially any woman looking to climb the corporate ladder while staying true to themselves instead of conforming to what they think they should be or do, and also prioritizing other areas of life outside of work.
Yeah, your chapter was definitely a powerful one, and I believe a needed one. It's not something that I see too much, is people that are specifically focusing on women advancing their careers and you give a lot of really practical tips, which I think is valuable. It's not just ideas and fluff of, oh, this all sounds good, but it's actually a lot of really practical, actionable tools that people can take and use and actually advance their careers based on what you have in that chapter. So I want to commend you for making it really practical for people.
Thank you.
What's one of your favorite tools or practices that you encourage women to do in your chapter?
So, a lot of the women I've worked with or spoken to really struggle with those mental blocks that you were referring to earlier. And the ones that they really struggle with is the fear, the doubt, the imposter syndrome. And so, the most actionable tool, there's a lot, but the one I'm going to make note of today is to stop getting educated and start getting experienced. And I know that is the polar opposite of what we learn in school, but the reality is that you can't educate your way out of having doubts or fear or imposter syndrome. You really have to actively put yourself out there to get that experience and evidence that you can produce results.
I love that. And you definitely walk the walk on that as well as talk the talk, which we love it.
Absolutely. Like being a woman myself, a woman leader, I have to say, Kelsey, I absolutely loved reading it. And I'm so grateful that you decided to join us in this project and you shared what you did. It is truly valuable. And anyone out here, whether you're a man or a woman, please go ahead and read this excerpt because it is truly eye-opening and really adds a lot of value. So thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I share a lot about what I've experienced in the corporate world as a woman. And I think a lot of men aren't even aware of a lot of the microaggressions and harassment and everything. And so it is a really important chapter for men to read and learn more about and understand. So thank you for pointing that out.
I agree with that fully. It actually was helpful for me even to just gain a deeper understanding of what goes on in your corporate world as a female, because I have no idea about a lot of this stuff. It's true. And I should know. And so even just for sure being a man and reading it to gain a little bit of awareness. It's also fun and light and entertaining too.
Yeah.
That's got some good stories in there too. So you'll actually enjoy it. But yeah, for sure, men and women absolutely should both read this chapter.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So, Kelsey, you were one of our early signs for becoming a co-author as well. And we knew that you had a lot of valuable knowledge to share. And you also knew that. And so I think for you, it was a natural progression into writing this chapter. But what would you say to somebody who has knowledge to share and they've got all this wisdom, but perhaps they just don't feel like they're good enough to be published?
Yeah, and for some context, I've been running my own business for 3.5 years now, and the goal to write a book has been on the vision board for many years. And I think that, I mean, Ty, you brought up an amazing point about the mental block, so I'm not going to mention that again, but if you're like me and you've had the goal of writing your own book on the vision board and it just keeps being put up there every single year for so long that you've lost count, this is the best thing to start with. I really appreciated the opportunity to get my feet wet as an author and getting a ton of support, like Aiden mentioned, in areas like marketing and publishing and so many things that I just don't have expertise in. And also, while not committing to a full book, because it does feel a little bit daunting at first. And I'm so glad I did it because now I know what the process is like, and writing a full book feels way less daunting for me. And I know that it's something I'm going to do soon. And you get access to all the tools you need in order to write your full book in the future. So it's a really worthwhile investment in yourself and in your growth, regardless of whether you pursue that full book later on. And the community you get to build in the process is absolutely incredible. I'm so grateful for all of the co-authors here today. And also, who doesn't want the credibility of being a published author?
Completely agree. And ideally, a best-selling author.
Best-selling author, exactly.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Kelsey. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, next we have Kate. I'd love to hear some of Kate's thoughts.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you. So, Kate, your chapter was on taming the inner critic. This is a valuable one for, in my opinion, anyone to read. But I'm curious, Kate, did you have a type of person in mind who you wrote this for that you think would really benefit from it?
Really, when I wrote this, it was for anyone who's ever bought into the lie that they're not enough. Whether it's not enough in their profession, not enough as a spouse, not enough as a parent, not enough because of religion, like no matter what the reason you felt that way, this chapter is here to remind you that you are enough.
I heard this a while back, and I think it's true. There's a not enough epidemic happening in the world. I actually think I agree with it. So the more resources like your chapter, Kate, that can help people overcome that and just become better, lifting themselves up, building themselves up, and using that then to live just a happier, more productive, more meaningful life. Really powerful. I think it's
Thank
an
you.
excellent chapter. I really enjoyed reading it.
Absolutely. We just had a moment right now where she was like an angel, where it became dark. Like it was the perfect timing.
The power saver lights. If I don't move enough, it all
Are
goes dark.
enough.
Yeah, a couple more a gesture every so often just to keep the light going. Funny.
You timed that well, Kate.
Kate, you also give a lot of action steps that people can take to help them. They have the chapter, they're reading your book. They can actually look at it and be like, okay, I'm going to do this next. I'm going to take some notes. I'm going to evaluate this. I'm going to do this next. You give a really clean and easy to follow breakdown that shows a person, how do we actually tame this inner critic and how do we do it as efficiently as possible? What would you say is one of your favorite techniques that you give for taming the inner critic in your chapter?
So, probably my favorite one that I want to recommend here is giving your inner critic a name. And the first time that I stumbled upon this, I thought it sounded so silly. But when you attribute your thoughts to an avatar and it's this other entity that has a name, it's so much easier to dismiss a person or an avatar versus dismissing your thoughts. So when you are feeling like you're not enough, if you have that name in mind, so I share in my chapter, like I call my inner critic Sam. And so if I'm having those thoughts, I just tell Sam, like, you gotta go. You gotta get lost right now. Not gonna listen to you. It helps me to reframe and go back to me and not the inner critic.
Yeah, we don't need you here, Sam. You're not welcome. That's a really good practice. I need to think of a name for mine. Do you have any strategies for helping people name their inner critic?
I didn't know you were going to put me on the spot with that. I named mine after someone that I wanted to get lost.
Yeah.
Just to be
Makes
honest.
sense. Yeah, somebody that we're not particularly fond of.
Mhm.
That's actually a good piece of advice. Appreciate that. I'm gonna have to think about that one.
Yeah, likewise. What a great idea.
Hopefully no one's inner critic is named Ty.
Hopefully not. Doubtful.
Kate, I remember you and I spoke over Zoom about becoming a co-author, and we had met once before that. And I know you were actually in the process of already writing, I believe, your first full-length book.
Hmm.
And so the idea of just writing a chapter and being a part of this to learn more and essentially even become an author, and ideally a best-selling author, that when you actually release your first book, it's not just, hey, here's my first book, it's author Kate releasing this first book. So, what would you say to someone who maybe they've done some writing, maybe they're working on a book or whatever it might be, and they're considering writing a chapter, but maybe they're like, well, no, I got this other stuff coming out. I don't need to do this. What would you say to that person?
So I definitely had a little bit of a reservation because I wasn't sure what it would be like to be in art with other people. But I will say the relationships and the friendships were so worth it. Some of the friendships I've made with my co-authors and some of the launch team, like I am just so incredibly grateful that my path crossed thanks to this book. So even though this is not the full work, next year there's going to be a lot more coming from me, but I'm really, really excited that I've got these people in my life. And that pushed me to go ahead and jump in now.
Awesome. We're very happy you jumped in. Great. Thanks, Kate. Okay, next we have Rad. I'd love to get some rad thoughts here. Rad is one of our co-authors who has actually written his own full-length book, and it has been released. Very successful on Amazon. And he did that all on his own, as he had mentioned, pretty much writing everything himself. So we were very happy to get Rad on board. Rad shares a lot of really, really valuable advice for people in many different areas, which I'll get him to speak to. I'm curious for you, Rad, your chapter on neglecting emotions. What type of person do you think would benefit most from reading your chapter?
Well, I initially write that chapter and I do a lot of my work for the younger self of me. The thing that I wish I knew when I was younger about emotions. And for a long portion of my life, I basically denied and neglected that I had any. Yep, I'm always happy. I'm never sad, never depressed, never angry. And so it's for those people that don't realize they have emotions, as well as on the other spectrum where people are just living completely in their emotions. So if someone's got good emotional regularity, you can skip over this chapter. But if you don't know you have emotions, or if you're completely irregular in your emotions, this is the chapter for you.
Yeah, it's a perfect description. I would argue there's not that many people that could skip over your chapter. If you're there, great. I commend you. I think most of us have definitely a couple things to learn throughout Rad's chapter. It's packed with value, really, really powerful techniques in there. You share a few different practices. What's one that sticks out to you that maybe had the greatest impact for you, or that may have the greatest impact on others?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar in what Aiden said earlier, where it's not necessarily the practice. I think people that are reading this book are already doing practices or going to yoga class, qigong, acupuncture, massage. It's the understanding that as a child, you were taught and you were potty trained essentially. On a physical level, you take in food and you have to excrete waste. And we were taught how to do that. On an emotional level, we weren't taught how to take in all this stuff and release it in a safe or applicable way. So we tend to hold it in. We don't understand what's going on. So my thing is that when these things arise, especially after you do some sort of self-help modality, meditation, breath work, these are like taking an enema for your emotions, and your body wants to release and shed, just like going to the bathroom. But what happens in most people is their conditioning is to hold and squeeze because they're afraid of this release. They shame, they guilt, they judge, they blame, they try to add stories to it, and they hold it in. Imagine you're spending your whole life never using the toilet, never going to the bathroom, and you're just carrying the weight of all the stuff festering inside of you. So understand and know that when those moments happen, they're actually very beautiful. When the pain is coming through, when you feel like crying for no reason at all, that's just stuff coming up from 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago that your body is trying to crap out. So my biggest tip is you're probably already doing some sort of self-help modality. When those things come through, allow them to come through. And they come through with pain. And your natural response is, I don't want to feel pain. I will numb it with alcohol, drugs, food, Netflix, anything to avoid feeling it. But I guarantee as soon as you go into feeling it with as much sense clarity, concentration, equanimity, which is what I talk about in my chapter, the sooner and faster you're going to move through it, you're going to feel much lighter. And that people have this expectancy that when we're in this emotional state, it's going to last forever. So try to avoid it. But actually the avoidance makes it last forever versus if you just experience it, it's only 60 to 90 seconds and then it's gone and you've had a release. So understanding that on the mental level, when your body freaks out, just pay attention, let it happen. It's a natural process, just like going to the toilet, but for your emotions.
I love that, Rad. And to be very honest, I needed to hear that today because I have been eating nonstop in this whole process of getting this book together. It's like, it's never ending. And it's that constant feeling like, oh, maybe I just want to snack some more. So I really needed to hear this today. I'm just going to sit down with this feeling of not wanting to eat, but going to let the 60 to 90 seconds, going to breathe through it and let the moment pass.
Yeah, there's so many techniques around that you can add to it, but at that basic level, if you have that, you can start the process.
Anshul will help you release your emotional constipation today.
You know what? I will not stop until we hit bestseller.
Then we will release all
Yeah.
of the emotions.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. That stuff is extremely powerful, Rad. I was definitely the type of person that pushed everything down. It was the very traditional masculine way of just pushing everything down, very unhealthy. You know, the stern father, stern grandparents just didn't know any better. And I feel like I didn't cry for like a solid 10 years. And then when I started learning more about actually the value of releasing these things and being more in touch with your emotions, I feel like I just cried like a decade's worth of emotions out one day, and I've been much better ever since. Now, maybe a little bit here, a little bit there, but I remember that day distinctly because I was so built up. I just unleashed for what felt like hours, and I had never felt lighter. So thanks for sharing that. I'm really excited to spend some time going through that chapter and scheduling little bits of time throughout my day to incorporate some of the practices, because this stuff is very powerful and very needed. So,
Yeah,
appreciate
one
you,
other
Rad.
thing to say too, what that feeling you're experiencing, I'm sure all of you experience it, is that in Chinese medicine, emotions cause internal disease. So when we carry that energy over and over and it becomes denser and denser and denser, it eventually manifests into the physical reality of a heart attack, liver problems, stomach problems. So what you're noticing is really great and making the connection that if I cry and I release, I feel way lighter. There's so much energy not bogging me down, and I can now go work, I can think, I can engage in a creative writing process, whatever it is, there's so much benefit to it.
Yeah, and the poop analogy is amazing. It's perfect. It's truly perfect for this. We can all relate. I love it. I love it. And so for you, Rad, you had already written a book and you decided to be a part of this one as a co-author and contribute a chapter. What made you decide to come on board and contribute to Things That I Wish I Knew?
I mean, mainly it was you because I knew you. You know, I see you, I see your presence. I've had you on my podcast a few times, and every time you talk, it's like, this is some good stuff. I can really apply it right away. And so I knew with you and the project and what you told me about your previous writing, how you're already a bestseller. I actually immediately applied what you told me in our conversation. And then my book did so much better. I became a #1 bestseller through a lot of your advice. So I just have a lot of faith and belief in you. Yeah, that's the main reason I decided.
Appreciate that, man. Means a lot. Awesome. Thanks, Rad. Brandon Benson we have up next. Great to see you, Brandon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our financial expert on the team here. Brandon, things I wish I knew about creating a financial plan. This is something that, again, a lot of us could benefit from. But Brandon, did you have a particular type of person in mind when you wrote this chapter?
If I had to say persons, I'd rather say persons, especially of a specific, like one of my aunts that I did a first time appointment with starting out as an advisor. How thinking about her experience of the fact that she may had someone for the bank, but wasn't necessarily given the proper education of like what was going on with her investment portfolio, the consistent service, be able to walk through certain things like of where to improve in terms of her spending habits and overall creating a plan as well. So I always think about my very first appointment that I did with my aunt and how really seeing the eyes and really seeing what was there in regards to the fact of like how the lack of service was basically given to her and how she really needed that help in terms of, you know, developing a game plan, making sure that there was someone there at her side to walk her in her journey of life as opposed to being sold a financial product rather than actually going through in terms of her journey, in terms of figuring things out in regards to her money journey as well.
I like what you said there about being sold a product versus helping a person create a plan. I think there's a really key distinction with what you do, Brandon, is you really take time and sit down with people and help them figure out a plan that is best suited for them and their needs. So what you do is extremely valuable work. And so it's interesting that there's a particular person that comes to mind. A lot of times we get started in certain businesses because of struggles we've had or struggles a close person to us has had. So thanks for sharing that, Brandon. Your chapter gives a really nice breakdown step by step of how a person can start taking more control of their finances. Is there a particular tool or something that you teach that you think would be most valuable to someone reading your chapter?
I believe it's just what I find in terms of the concepts and like what I've been taught studying for my licensing exam. All of it was dry material, all of it was jargon, and how what I really focus more on is be able to keep things simple, right? And how what I focused on the chapter was talking about the Petraf analysis, which is nothing more than a 4-step process to be able to identify what you want, how to plan it out, how to make it simple, right? In terms of identifying what your goals are, starting with the letter P, with purpose, identifying with the time frame to accomplish those set goals, whether it be as something as simple for saving for retirement or a down payment on a house, right? Whatever those goals that realistically that you can hold yourself accountable with your partner, with working in an actual professional to set those goals aside on the T aspect of the time frame, right? Knowing the fact that if you're going to focus on investing, how's your risk tolerance, right? No different than if you're going to a restaurant, right? If you're going for like hot, spicy Indian food, are you going for the hot, spicy Indian food or just remove the spice at all, right? In terms of assessing what your overall risk tolerance is. And as well as just assessing more of the fact of what can you afford? What money do you have ready available? Can you do a monthly plan? Do you have some lump sum savings? Do you have leftover birthday money that you didn't use and be able to use to help fund those goals, right? So what I find is that the essential core focus of my Petraf analysis, what I basically mentioned in the book, is really that self-checkup, that self-assessment for what you want to be able to accomplish and the next steps to be able to make that possible.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Brandon, I believe you had met Anshul at a networking event, and that's how you ended up becoming a part of the book. If anyone goes to networking events, read my chapter on first impressions. It's going to make them much, much easier for you.
Yeah.
But Brandon and Anshul were both very good at first impressions with each other, and they connected right away. And Brandon, you ended up becoming an author in the book, and we were very excited to get you in. Brandon, what would you say to someone who maybe meets Anshul at a networking event? They're not sure about jumping into this book. What would you say to somebody who's kind of unsure about the whole thing?
I feel that what I was very unsure at first before jumping on, because when it was at last minute notice to at less time as opposed to everyone else who started in January, I started in May, right? And how I had every single excuse, like, mind you, I was busy trying to like manage my business, manage my social life, manage everything else. And like life comes at you at the most unpredictable times possible. But the one thing that really kept in my mind is that what's the end result of this? You know, as the fact that I have all like these time insecurities, all these things that are popping up in life, that I know for the fact that I always think of the end image of what would it look like in terms of coming to, you know, to the end destination of like finishing this project of contributing the chapter. And the one thing that I really focused on is that my impact is a lot more is a lot greater than as opposed to my insecurities. I'm going to go through some insecurities. I'm going to go through, the amount of times that my chapter got sent back and like, oh, this is fine. But then I got 700 inquiries to be able to correct spacing and so forth. And that's going to happen. Nothing's perfect. So I really realized the fact that I could do something really greater in terms of spreading out my message, and things that I've always wanted to create and be able to write my very first book. And knowing the fact that this is an amazing start to be able to be part of things I wish I knew. And, just to say to people that are unsure, just understand, understand the experience, the impact that you're going to create for yourself, the things that you learn, the people that you make, right? And I know that Kate mentioned that the friendships and connections that she made, through virtual and hopefully in person as well, right? And how I was able to interact with like my fellow co-authors. Shout out to Shannon for being able to do her first IG live with me and be able to share like her process, her story, and the connections through there. So those are the core things I would really tell someone that's very unsure, just starting their first writing process, what they want to do for themselves or work with other people.
And if I may add very quickly, Brendan, that was an excellent response, by the way. It was such a pleasure to meet you live at a networking event. We both came there very authentically, just being ourselves. We were laughing and just showing our personality. And when I saw that in Brandon, that's when we got to talking, and I told him about the book, and he himself was intrigued by it. And he was truly being himself. Even though he was unsure, he was still asking the right questions to gain clarity and gauge whether this is an opportunity that could benefit him, or whether this is something that could leave a lasting impact in the world. And so far, with all the authors we've heard from, one thing has stayed consistent, and that is every single author out here today cares about people and cares to leave a legacy in the world. And for that, Ty and I were extremely grateful that you are a part of this book, and we've created this gem together. We really, really appreciate that. For the next person that we are about to interview, we will be going ahead and interviewing Erica Reed next. Ty, take over. You are muted, my friend.
Absolutely, yeah. Erica's chapter was really interesting. It's almost meta in a way. You're writing about writing and being a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Like writerception. Very interesting chapter. Erica, your chapter alone was almost a great way to explain and help give people peace of mind that truly anyone can be a writer and they can become a published author. Did you have a specific type of person in mind when you wrote your chapter, a specific type of person to encourage to write more?
I would say that my reader avatar was definitely someone who struggles with imposter syndrome when it comes to the idea of being a writer, or that they feel completely stuck with their writing and don't know where to go from what they've started with.
And that's probably most writers when they start with that feeling of imposter syndrome, not knowing, where do I start? Where do I go next? Is this even worth it? For sure, we've all had thoughts like that. So yeah, your chapter is very valuable for that type of person. What is one actionable tool, or maybe one concept, that you recommend readers do within your chapter to help push them forward in that writing process?
One of the things I share in my chapter is my secret sauce, my formula to writing a book in 30 days. And this is something I usually coach authors on or share in my online classes. And I felt it was finally time to really share this with a wider audience on how easy it is to write a book by utilizing this formula, by keeping yourself accountable. And I use it every single day, every time I'm working with my client, my own writing. So I am so excited to share that with everyone.
Awesome. We are very excited for everyone to see it and read it.
It truly is a blessing for anyone that has had thoughts of writing something and doesn't feel like they have much value to add. Please go ahead and grab this book, Things I Wish I Knew, and read Erica's chapter, because it's written so beautifully, simply, that it inspires you to believe that I do have something that I could share with the world. I have knowledge, I have skills, and writing doesn't need to be hard. The best writers I know write very simply, and Erica, you embody that. Your excerpt was fantastic to read.
Thank you so much.
It absolutely was. And Erica, you're probably going to be one of the most qualified people to answer this question, which is, if somebody's unsure about starting to write, and we'll say starting to write a chapter, because that's usually a bit more digestible for the average person. If they're still unsure about even writing a chapter, what would you tell that person?
At this day and age, it is truly impossible to be a successful author without a team. No matter which way a person decides to have their book published or how to write a book, you can't do it with other people. And starting with just a chapter and working with a team, because essentially all of us on this book are a team who encouraged each other through the entire process, through every deadline, through every edit and revision. It took a team. So if someone wants to experience being a #1 bestseller, they have to have a team. And doing this process that we've all been through is the key to success. A lot of people want guarantee in our day and age, and this is how to guarantee success, working with a team.
Amazing answer. We really appreciate your words there. The team aspect is something that we find so meaningful too. And it's definitely a much easier way to start your writing journey too, is working with a group of people that care about you, they want to support you, and they want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And-
we're very happy.
I always say with my finger up, success is a team sport.
100%. Okay, thanks, Erica. Next, I'd love to hear from our boy Derek Jacob Kessler, the man himself.
Hello.
Great to see you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you too.
Derek, your chapter was Things I Wish I Knew About Failure, and you made me laugh yesterday. Derek posted a video on Instagram talking about the book and his chapter, and he said, "My chapter is Things I Wish I Knew About Failure, and I have a lot to share when it comes to failure." So Derek is a very honest, genuine guy, and Derek has failed his way to success, which is quite inspiring. Derek, you wrote your chapter and you touched on a few different stories throughout your life where you failed and then you failed and then you kept failing forward to get to where you are now. Do you think there's a type of person who would get the most value from reading your chapter?
Yeah, for my chapter, I think anyone that honestly feels stuck in life or is looking to get more out of life than what they already have. For myself, I mean, growing up in a small town, by society's standards, I was quote unquote killing it. I had a great job in the oil field. My family lived close by. I had a motorcycle, a nice apartment, all these things. But I sat there and I was like, I just don't feel fulfilled. What is this? And I realized that I wasn't challenging myself enough. And that was rooted in my fear of failure. Growing up in a small town, it was really kind of a keeping up with the Joneses type thing. So I was like, I'm scared to try anything new because I don't know how I'm going to be judged by my peers and my friends and all that kind of stuff. Then when I kind of just said, screw it, I'm going to tackle this and take on life and get outside my comfort zone and try new things, I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing very well at these things, but I'm learning and I'm growing, as opposed to just staying in the same place and trying to continue doing what you're good at. I was like, let me try these other things and see how they go. And it just continued to push me in life to do more and more and more.
Yeah, it's really well said. And I think a lot of us can relate to feeling stuck in our life in some type of way. It could be personally, it could be professionally, it could be financially, physically. And what Derek talks about and teaches throughout his chapter can really be applied for any aspect of life. I think a
What
lot
I-
of times, go ahead.
What I particularly loved about what you said, Derek, was the aspect of fulfillment. It seemed like from an outside perspective that you were crushing it, to say the least, that you were so successful, but you were lacking that sense of fulfillment, that in that pursuit of achievement, right? And in fact, I wrote a book about this called Ongoing Success and Wellbeing: How to Cultivate Fulfillment in the Pursuit of Achievement, which is why I love what you said about failing forward. You know, you have like it. When you do purchase the book, Things I Wish I Knew, and you're reading Derek's excerpt, you can read his bio at the end of his excerpt. Like, he truly has experienced and done different things to where he is today. It's like success didn't just come to him. He was willing to try new projects, new entrepreneurial journeys, and that's what has brought him here today. And he is today a published author. So thank you once again for sharing your journey with us so authentically, and read his bio.
Thank you.
Yeah, Derek, your chapter is a great combination of stories and tools, practices, insights for people to take away and apply into their own lives. What's one insight, or maybe what's one tip that you could recommend readers who are listening to take away from this that they might find valuable?
I think the biggest tip that I can give is to put yourself in real life situations. We can all read books, we can all consume knowledge, and knowledge is great, but unless you actually put in the work and try it in the real world, it really doesn't hold any value. Like for myself, my friend and I moved out here, we started a clothing company, and we're like, well, how do we sell these? Like, where do we go? We got a table at the flea market for $20, and there's people all around us selling random stuff. And we have this brand new clothing company we're trying to sell at a flea market. And we're like, hey, we made 7 sales. That was super awkward and it was really weird, but we did it, and we did it together. And then the next step was like, well, let's put clothes in a suitcase and just walk around Kitsilano and go store to store and walk in and be like, hey, do you guys want to sell our stuff? And for me, when I was younger, being a lot more socially awkward, it helps so much for me to go into these real life situations and be able to put myself out there and say, well, yeah, they said no. And that kind of felt empowering. And it goes back to stories of reading about like Sylvester Stallone, where he was like sleeping outside of audition places. And the one thing that stuck with me too was like, it takes 10 no's to get a yes. So in my mind, I was like, when we were going out there, we're like, hey, let's just keep stacking up these no's, and then eventually we're going to get a yes. And it just built that kind of callus in my mind where if someone says no or it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter, because you just keep moving forward in that direction of it's going to happen. I just got to get through these uncomfortable situations. And all the growth is going to come from being uncomfortable. And that's the one thing nowadays where I'm just like, the more comfortable I feel, I'm like, all right, I got to do something else. I got to try a new class or try something different. And yeah, so I would just say put yourself in those real life situations is where you're going to get the ultimate growth from.
So good, so powerful. I couldn't agree more. That is truly, in my opinion, the path to a meaningful life, right? And I don't know, personally, I don't know if pursuing a happy life where you're happy all the time is the correct way to look at it. Pursuing a meaningful life, which involves doing the hard things, the uncomfortable things, like you talked about. So much power in there. So thanks for sharing that. I really resonated.
My pleasure.
So Derek, I don't believe you had done too much writing before this, and we still managed to get you to sign on, write a chapter in the book. What made you take the plunge, and what would you say to someone who is having doubts about whether they're capable of taking the plunge?
I took the plunge again just because it was a challenge and it was something that I'd always wanted to do, but I didn't really have the direction. When you're brand new in something, you don't really know where to start. But again, when you have a team and you have support behind you, I feel like it just takes so much of the stress away, because you read other people's stories and messages saying like, oh, I'm struggling with this, or I don't really know how to do this. And you're feeling the exact same way. And you're like, okay, well, this is okay. So in my mind, I'm like, how do you how do you write a chapter? Do you just get a piece of paper and just start writing your thoughts? Like, what's the first sentence? Where do I go from here? And for me, I was like, this is awesome. It's a blank piece of paper and I can just talk about things I wanted to talk about. And yeah, it was a challenge, but it's something that I've thought about for a long time. I did a little bit of blogging in like 2017. And then of course, coming into 2018, it's like Instagram and photos is the big thing. And I'm only getting 20 views. I was doing like some travel blogging, but it was the one thing that I found myself really, when I write, I get into the zone. But there's a mix of that and like a little bit of the imposter syndrome. So being able to be a part of a team has really helped me to write and yeah, get on this journey. And I've already actually kind of started writing my own book. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Awesome. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
So good. Okay, next we'd love to hear from Anna, who wrote about suffering. Anna had a very powerful chapter. Everyone should absolutely read Anna's chapter. And I'm quite curious if you wrote this for the younger version of yourself or for anyone who's in a particular stage of their life. Who did you write this chapter for?
Thank you, Ty. Thank you for your kind introduction. So, I don't know, my chapter is pretty much for anyone who has ever suffered in their life. So, of course, that means everyone who is on this planet. Suffering is so universal. There isn't one person on this earth who has not suffered. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you have. You can be rich or poor, you can be young, you can be old, you can be single or married. You can be well educated or not well educated. It doesn't matter what you have or don't have in life. You always have to take suffering that comes with the situation that you're in at that time. It's like what the Buddhist monk Ajahn Brahm always says. He always says, when you're rich, you have rich person suffering. When you're poor, you have poor person suffering. And this is precisely why I think every person on this earth should read my chapter, because no one can escape suffering in life. So it's a universal thing. It's for everyone.
Completely agree with you. Something that we cannot escape throughout our lives is suffering. And I always think of David Goggins when I hear the word suffering. He actually tells us to embrace the suffering. And Anna actually has a powerful part of her chapter called the silver lining behind suffering. So just thinking about it in a little bit of a different way, like Anna talks about and encourages us to do, really, really helpful. Really helpful. Anna, what would you say? You give a lot of good knowledge, tips, experience throughout your chapter. What would you say is one tool or maybe one tip that a person could take away from this conversation and apply it to their lives when it comes to suffering?
Okay. First of all, I just want to quickly address that I have also read David Goggins' books. He's incredible. He's been through so much trauma and came out on top. That's incredible. I'm not sure if I can ever be that incredible, but anyhow, so getting back to your question. So one actionable tool I want to just highlight quickly here is that whenever we're faced with painful emotions, all those painful mental afflictions, whether it's shame or guilt or grief or sadness, depression, or a mixture of all of the above, we have to be able to face them, let them in and sit with them, but not let them derail us. So of course, it's easier said than done. It's very hard to do because we are only human. We have egos and we have feelings. But it's the only way to neutralize those emotions, because when threat is external, when we're faced with an external threat, like if some animal's chasing after us or something, then yes, it's very easy for us to physically run away from that threat. But when the threat is internal, when the threat is in your own mind, there's nowhere to run. You can't run away from it. We try to do it. We try to suppress them, by distracting ourselves with all kinds of things, and some of them are not very healthy, because it's easier to try to run away from them rather than to face them. But facing them is the only way to neutralize them. So what does that mean? So we have to stop trying to suppress those painful emotions. When they come, we have to be able to stay calm, let them in, sit with them and face them. But the trick is to not let them overwhelm us, not get overpowered by those negative emotions. And that takes practice. It's not that easy, but it can be achieved, with practice and with a little bit of patience. And then over time, we will be able to kind of like sit with them and observe them like we're just watching a movie or something, but not let them overpower us. And then from that, eventually we will be able to, break free from those emotions and not get overwhelmed. But anyway, so more details about that in my chapter. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Anna.
Yeah.
Anna, you were one of our co-authors who you yourself was a bit unsure about signing up initially, as many people were. Whether it's the limiting beliefs or the uncertainty. Now knowing what you know, in just maybe a couple bullet points, what would you say to someone who is unsure about being in a book like this?
Okay, so I would like to say that everyone on earth has the potential to write their own chapter. As the saying goes, there is a book inside every one of us, right? And yes, you're right. I was hesitant to write my own chapter at the beginning because I kept thinking that I didn't have anything original to say that had already been said by a million people a million times over. But then I realized something. I kind of realized that what people really want to read is perhaps not so much, something totally original. What people want to read is a story that they can identify with. And that's precisely why we like to read stories of struggle and triumph. We like to read stories about other people who have suffered, the hardships that we suffered, made the same mistakes that we made, and people who managed to rise above all of that and come out on top as better versions of themselves. It's called inspiration. And when we read stories like that, it makes us think, oh, well, if they have suffered that, if they have also made the same mistakes, but if they could rise above it all, then, well, so can I, right? That's how we inspire each other. So I would like to encourage every single person on this planet to, write their own book, or at least write their own chapter, because everyone has something to share. Yes, our struggles are similar. Yes, we all have been through the same hardships and same traumas throughout, the history of time, right? Hardships and struggle, that's universal. But, we all have our own stories and our own journeys, and the methods that we use to overcome, those hardships to become who we are today. So I think everyone should write a chapter and share with the world, their own stories of how they overcame their own hardships. Everyone has the potential to be an inspiration to the world.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Anna. I completely agree with you. Well said.
That was so powerful, Anna. I just have to commend you for that and take space to acknowledge you right now. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anju Vachi. Great to see you, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Can you hear me well?
Can hear you perfectly. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Anju Vachi, your chapter was on humility, things I wish I knew about humility. We spent some pretty powerful time together fine-tuning that chapter, really making it a work of art. Very happy with how it turned out. Anju Vachi, what type of person should read Things I Wish I Knew About Humility?
Great question, Ty. I'd like to shout out to Anna for her powerful speech, Radislav for his humility as well, and showing that he was doing self-actualizing, and Derek for talking about failure. So their excerpts, the same kind of people who would read theirs definitely can read mine, because I needed to learn to humble myself and not be so self-centered and arrogant and just overly masculine, and seek help and actually be aware of my environment. So I would say the best person, especially, is someone who is overly self-reliant, right? I've learned that teamwork asking for help has been the best decision of my life. Like having a partner, someone I deeply care for, asking for her help has made my life easier. And I never used to ask for help, like ever. She'd ask me, "Are you okay? Do you need to talk?" Never. I was such a wall. So, and having a best friend who I met when I was younger see me as a man to man, that was actually one of the best moments of my life. Just having someone to see me. So definitely.
So good, man. I absolutely love that. I can definitely relate to a lot of the stuff that you talk about in the chapter as well. Appreciate you for sharing.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I remember you put together, this was early on, you and I actually brainstormed a couple of these together. We had a little group writing session, and there was a number of tools that you give to help people become more, rather increase their humility. What would you say is your favorite tool, or what's one that you would encourage a person to start implementing?
Wow, that question, I'm already being pulled two different ways. I'm addicted to exercise. I mean, I'm doing jujitsu, Muay Thai, I'm doing gyms 4 times a week, cycling. So I need to move around, but I'd say it's going out in nature. So I live on 1.25 acres, and in the morning, I leave the phone in the room. I go outside in the sun and just sit there. I don't talk to myself. I just breathe. And that has been the most humbling, just realizing I don't need to talk. I don't need to feel too deeply. Just appreciate the environment I have. Because as a kid, we all been there, going outside, just being childish and enjoying the world. That has grounded me so much because it keeps me aware that it's the little things in life that are so fulfilling. Like every time, just seeing someone smile out in public, listening to someone who's older than me give me a conversation, doing something nice for my grandma, that has really helped solidify that part of me that just needs to keep growing and being humble. So I'm really grateful that you asked that question.
So good, so powerful. There's a ton of absolutely wonderful, magical, impactful content coming from this interview. This is truly remarkable, all of the insights that we're getting from each of you. It's something that Anshul and I are very grateful for, everyone showing up to this call and being so open to share. And these answers are absolutely spectacular. So thank you to all of you. This is amazing.
I agree. And if I may add to this, like, I love that you mentioned that, there are all these physical activities that you participate in, Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and you probably, I'm sure you go to the gym and lift weights on a regular basis, but at the end of the day, if that is something that brings you joy, but you're still feeling a bit of like you're not feeling completely fulfilled, going out in nature and letting nature take care of you is so powerful. So I just wanted to bring that to light, that maybe you have one practice that you are engaged in, but you're ignoring other different aspects of life. Perhaps it's time to take some time and do things that you don't usually do that could potentially make you feel great and make you feel full. So thank you for being a part of our book, Things I Wish I Knew. Your chapter is such a gem, Anju Vachi. Thank you once again for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Anju Vachi, I remember you came on and joined the book near the later half of some of the signings, and very excited to get you on board. I remember I called Anshul right after we did our meeting, and I had to tell her that you had agreed to join. We were all so thrilled to get you as part of this project. And you and I actually met, we were connecting through LinkedIn. And so you signed up to be in a book when you didn't really know totally what it was. We didn't really know each other that well, but we had some good conversations. What made you take the plunge and sign up for the book?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I'll be a little in depth, but also just keep it short. When I was a kid, my dad was a great example for me. He's incredibly social. I mean, he can speak to any stranger and have a good conversation with them. He's also a great listener. which is why I try to embody that. I learned that growing up in high school, I could be a chameleon with my friends, meet any kind of group and fit in. I would go to the mall and just talk to strangers just to get that social confidence because I was so introverted and also extroverted at the same time in high school. So I love just following strangers and seeing what I can learn. So when you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I thought, I could join this book. It makes me a little uncomfortable. I also learned that being uncomfortable is the best way to grow. So we had that Zoom talk and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna sign up. Why not? Why think about it? Why give it thought? Just do it, dude. Because I've learned if I think too much about things, I don't commit. And I just want to commit in life now. Like there's no point to think ever what if, because I'm honestly young and I'd rather leave the legacy knowing that I did things that scared the bejesus out of me rather than think, I should have done that. So that's really why I signed up. And honestly, I agree, Radislav, I have faith in you. You know, you speak really well. You have a calm demeanor, which I, can appreciate in a person. And you lead well, you're not, I can see that you're actually altruistic. There's a lot of leaders who try to be, but I can see through the facade that they're not. You're genuine. And that's something I want to look back in life and say, yeah, I met Ty and he was actually a great influence in my life.
Thank you, man. That means a lot to me. Really appreciate that. I received those words.
Of course.
Just building me up. I love it. I'm so fortunate. So blessed. Yeah, no, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we have Shannon joining us. Shannon's been waiting very patiently, and we appreciate that. Shannon, we'd love to ask you some questions about your chapter. How do you feel? I think you're on mute. So let's get you unmuted first.
Okay,
There we
sorry.
go. Rocking and rolling. Great to see you, Shannon.
I feel nervous and excited, and like this whole project has been phenomenal progress.
We appreciate you for being here, being a part of the book. Your chapter is on codependency, which is a very, very important subject. I was curious when I was going through your chapter, who you wrote your chapter for. I imagine that it was a younger version of you, perhaps in some way, but I'd love to hear from your words. Who was this chapter written for? What type of person?
This chapter was written for people that live a life feeling like they have to fulfill others' needs before their own. And by, you live your life with a shame-based inner critic that has you question who you are. You don't really know who you are because you're always living for other people and outside of yourself existence. And, you struggle with a healthy means of communication in your rights, in the things that you feel that you need and desire, and really struggle with boundaries.
I love that. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. It's a great excerpt, and I highly encourage everyone, when you buy the book, please, please, please go ahead and read Shannon's chapter. It is soul-filling, soul-touching, and really inspires you to think and reflect on yourself. Are you taking care of yourself? How are you showing up for yourself? How are you standing up for yourself? How do you create boundaries to protect your well-being while you're being of service to the world? Great job, Shannon.
Thank you very much for helping me get here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lots of exceptional knowledge, lots of wonderful value sprinkled throughout the chapter. what's one thing that stands out to you that you would tell someone? Maybe it's a tip, maybe it's an insight. What would you tell someone if they perhaps needed a place to start or just wanted one actionable takeaway?
The biggest takeaway from me, a tool that I learned in learning about how to lead and start living a healthy life coming out of codependency, was the I statement. And it is, I feel, and you say your actual feelings. So I'm actually going to give you the most strongest one that I experienced coming out of the treatment center. And it's, I feel because, when, and what I need is. And to put something into perspective, my biggest day of using that tool was with my ex-husband saying, I feel resentful because your drinking gets out of hand when we're on vacation. And what I need is you to be mindful and present for me and our family. And then what came out of that was setting a boundary. And I know this is a heavy example, but the boundary was, at that point, finally figuring out a healthy means of communication, was that if you do not follow this boundary, our marriage and our family will not survive. And now, to be a little bit lighter, you can use it for everything in life. So with work and friendships, and that's the thing, is within being in codependency, it affects all areas of your life, all relationships. So, with a girlfriend recently, I feel sad because we haven't had a girl date for a long time. And what I need is for us to set up a date in the calendar. That way, because life is so busy, and, so that's a tool that you can use for all areas.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to start using that. Thanks for giving us both a heavy and a light example. It really helps show how actionable it is. And truly, it's just like a fun little fill in the blank, but except it's extremely powerful for personal growth. So
And
I love simple things like that.
It brings everything to the point. No confusion, like just getting it all said and out there simply. And it's worked wonders in all areas of my life.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I love that little tip. Okay. Really good one. Shannon, I remember that based on the position that you were in at the time, you had some, like all of us, you had some, I believe, emotional resistance to putting your story out there, which completely understandable. What would you say to someone who perhaps is experiencing that resistance as well? They maybe feel kind of called to share or to be in a book or to write a chapter, but they feel like there's something blocking or holding them back, perhaps similar to what you felt. What would you tell that person, knowing what you know now, having done the whole process?
Well, first and foremost, anything of substance that calls you to see something and you acknowledge that, like it's there in your peripheral and you're being called to it for something. Naturally, what comes up first is fear of failure, fear of being exposed, fear of, following through. And for me, I was really fearful of, starting this and not finishing it. Yet what I've experienced in all of the things that I've accomplished is that you need to have a coach, a system, a plan for your goal. And signing up with Elite, it was, your company and your business plan had everything sorted out. And you affirmed me that I would have the support, and I had nothing but open hands and consideration. And also, what came up for me was that there was times where I didn't want to sit at my computer because this is really confronting at some days. Yet at the same time, knowing that I was in this elite group of people and under yours and Anshul's direction, I was set up for success no matter what. And so it pushed me through, and I got exactly what I wanted. I wanted, you know, we all have a voice and we all have something special to say. And, you know, stop thinking that you know, like the inner critic is your worst enemy. And surrounding yourself with like-minded, positive people that are up to big in life, this is an amazing opportunity. And I finished.
You finished.
And now, Erica, I was not happy with her because in editing, she had said, oh, maybe you should save this for your book. And I was like, whoa, nobody said anything about a book. Yet now she planted the seed, and here I am like, okay, perhaps that is a possibility. And so it's growing into something.
Once you get a taste of the writing, someone's like,
It
tough
is
to
so,
stop once you start.
it's so therapeutic. Yes.
Yeah.
It's been
Awesome. Thanks for
such-
sharing.
Such an incredible journey working with Shannon as well. You know, she'd send me messages, and at every phase she was blossoming. You know, she was having those breakthroughs, and she was just keeping at it at every single phase. Not once did she say, I don't think I could do this, it's too confronting for me. Never. If anything, she had those breakthroughs, and she kept creating something even more unique and so powerful. Like, it was such a pleasure to have you in this journey with us, Shannon. You truly worked through so many challenges in this process, you know, raising 2 daughters and going through what you went through while you were still writing. Those edits, I remember you reaching out to me after you received Erica's edits, and you're like a whole book. But then recently you messaged me, she was like, so what does it take to publish a book with Elite Impact Publishing? Like, now we're reaching to that level, and that's what it's about. You know, you may not think of yourself as an author, but when you give yourself that opportunity, the time, the space to be with yourself, your thoughts, and you put pen to paper, like, it is such a therapeutic journey that it inspires you to believe that, hey, I could be a published author and I could publish an entire book of my own. So thank you so much for being authentic and sharing that journey with us, Shannon.
Deepest gratitude.
Amazing. Jasmine, we'd love to hear from you, our final co-author, and hear a bit more about your experience. Thanks for joining us, Jasmine. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very, very
Absolutely.
nervous.
Oh, that's okay. It's a safe space.
Yes.
Jasmine, your chapter was on healing the inner child, and I appreciated this chapter. It made me think about little Ty, who I sometimes forget about, but who is somebody I should keep recognizing and letting them know what's going on, giving them updates, bringing them along to stuff that I do. Very important. So thanks for the topic of this chapter and everything that you wrote in it, because it was very useful to me. So Jasmine, what type of person should read about healing the inner child?
I think I would start off by saying that the whole book is such an amalgamation of everybody from different walks of life, different identities, different labels. So coming together, anybody picking up this book will find something in it, something that will resonate with them. I feel that my chapter is a love letter to anybody who's gone through dysfunction in their life, has been feeling like their life was unparented, and like, you know, just feeling like either they're at the start of their journey or at the summit, and sometimes they just need someone in their corner. We see you, we support you, and we want you to leave this book feeling hopeful. So I hope that like this chapter brings you that.
Awesome. It's a great answer. You had to pick one particular tip or tool, anything like that, that readers could take and start using immediately in their lives. What's that one sort of main takeaway that you'd like to mention?
This is very interesting to me. I think everybody's answers too. I would say I would really like the reader to go out of the chapter and like maybe try finding patterns, because I feel like that was the one thing that really stumped me. And very early on, someone helped me, my therapist helped me to be like, you have to differentiate between shame and guilt. Shame is unnecessary, whereas guilt can be good. If you have done something, if you have, experienced, like, we all make mistakes, we all do things that can be harmful, we can, follow into those footsteps. Recognize that, take acknowledgement, and try to make amends. Do that, that's guilt. That's the purpose of guilt. Shame, on the other hand, can function well in some instances, but it can get really insidious and stay within you. And years later, you're feeling guilty and upset and just having so many different physical issues with it too. And you look back and you're like, I'm not sure why am I feeling this way. Those moments are, you have been triggered. So find it. Whenever you're feeling in this moment where you're just not sure, why is this lingering sadness or anger just there? Look at it, note it, and make sure that you do two things. First, make a note of what triggered it to make that shame there. Second, how did you get out of it? So it's a process. Write it down. I love writing things down. So just write it down, and slowly and steadily you'll find your patterns, and it just becomes easier and easier to work on them.
That was really well said, Jasmine. Thank you for adding that piece about the therapist. It brings things to perspective.
Yeah. Excellent explanation. Really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay, the last question is about somebody who's unsure about signing up. Now, Jasmine, I remember you were one of our very first signups, and it was really nice because you seemed to have a lot of faith in us. I believe it was more faith in Anshul at that time. We didn't really know each other that well, but you had so much faith, and you were very confident, and you were like, let's go, I'm in this. I'm curious, what made you so confident in joining the book when, I don't believe you had been a published author before. What motivated that, and what would you say to someone else who maybe doesn't have the same level of confidence?
I love this question, just because I would like to take this opportunity to say to anybody out there, if you can write it, someone out there needs to read it. So don't worry about who it's for, who it's going to impact, doesn't matter, just write. I love Anshul, and I have grown to love everybody here. Thank you so much, Ty, for being there. Your edits, everything was just so well thought out, and criticisms felt like someone guiding you through the process. As I said before, everybody part of this book, nobody is surplus. Our editors, people who designed our cover, everybody put their heart, soul, everything into this book, and it shows. Everybody's chapters are so well thought out. Their writing is masterful. The work that they did, Anna, Shannon, Kelsey, Kate, everybody working hard to promote, to reach out to as many people as they can. It empowers you to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe in a sea of people, I alone don't have a voice that's strong enough. But when you are in a group and you can all speak out together, it can empower you in a way that you don't know. So maybe a big book seems like, maybe I can't do it, but join something like this, and please sign on with Elite Impact Publishing, because I'm telling you, these people know what they're doing. All right. I felt absolutely better for it. It's one of the best experiences I've had in my life. Nothing can come close to it. So I am very, very grateful to everybody here. Thank you. Thank you so much. And sign on, basically. Yeah.
That was very sweet, Shannon. We sincerely appreciate it. And as we've been saying, having each one of you in this journey with us it meant a lot to us. from the moment we received your first excerpts to where we are today has been amazing. So we actually we ordered publisher copies. This is not the real copy, it's a publisher copy. This is specific for us. Oh, Kelsey got her copy. Wonderful. Yes. And as we were holding this in our hands when we received it, the inside of the book, everything is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So we're very excited for each one of you to receive your copies as well. What a journey it has been to where we are today. Ty, what would you like to say as we're about to wrap up our launch interview?
We just want to extend our deepest gratitude to everyone for trusting us with your chapters and with this journey, everything from writing, editing, formatting, marketing, cover design, publishing, pre-post, during launch. There's so many moving pieces that go into this. So for you to trust us with every aspect of publishing, every step of the journey, I know it definitely takes a certain level of confidence and faith. So really appreciate you for believing in us, believing in our vision. This book is going to impact a lot of lives. And looking at it today, we posted on Amazon, people are buying it today. We're messaging people, we're sharing it in our stories and social media. Very powerful day. But looking forward, this book will be available for people to buy for the rest of time. Amazon is not going anywhere. Amazon printing books is not going anywhere. They make a lot of money doing this. So it's not an exaggeration to say that somebody can purchase this book that you wrote 20, 30, 40 years from now. Decades of this book can be sold. This is something you can hold in your hands, show your children, your grandchildren, if you choose to have them, your great nieces and great nephews, if you don't have kids, friends, family members. It's truly a part of your legacy that you have now. And we're going to get the full official bestseller status. We'll get all the graphics, all the pictures, everything we need by the end of the day, because we're definitely going to hit that and it's going to be official. We're very excited about it. We got to keep pushing that. But just in the grand scheme, this is something that you can hold in your hands for the rest of your life. I just want to acknowledge this really special moment, and the moment that each of you get that book in the mail and you hold it the way that Kelsey's doing now. Kelsey, can you hold that up for us? Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. It's a really special moment. You're part of something that is now imprinted in history. Take a moment, just recognize yourselves, recognize truly the power of this moment and the special project that you've all worked so hard on.